Let's find the lowest common multiples of 3, 4 and 16. So to find the lowest common multiple of 3, 4 and 16, so we're going to write the three numbers 3, 4 and 16. It's supposed to be multiples of 3, 4 and 16. Of course, in no way it should be ever smaller than the largest of the three numbers given. That means it's not going to be smaller than 16 at all. So it's because supposed to be multiples of 16 and multiples of 4 and multiples of 3. So start dividing by prime numbers, and of course you have to start with the smallest prime number, that's of course a 2. And when you start dividing by 2, so whenever a number cannot be divided, okay, by the given smallest prime number, unless all three of them cannot be divided, then of course you go for the next higher number. But in this case 4 and 16 can be divided by 2, so only 3 cannot be divided by 2. Therefore I just copy down the 3, okay, and I'm going to continue trying to divide the 4 and 16. So of course 4 is divisible by 2. So when we divide the 4 by 2, continue to divide until all the numbers are going to give 1. Okay, so 4 if I divide by 2, that's going to give me a 2, and 16 if I divide by 2, that would give me a 8. So now I have divided successfully the 4 and 16 by the 2, which is the smallest prime number. But of course 3 could not be divided, so I did not divide it, I just carried it down. So then of course you can see still the 2 and the 8 can still be divided by a 2. So I'm going to continue to divide by 2. So 3, once again it cannot be divided, so I'm just going to copy it down. However, 2 can be divided by 2 to give me a 1. So I will just write there as a 1, and 8 can be divided by 2 to give me a 4, and I'm just going to write that down still. Okay, and you still have the 4 that is still divisible by 2, and of course I'm going to continue to divide by 2 until that also gives me a 1. Okay, so 3 cannot be divided, 1 since it cannot be divided by 2, so I'm going to just write down a 1. However, 4 can be divided by 2, so I'm going to just divide that by 2 to give me a quotient of 2, so I'm going to write down. So I've got 3, 1 and 2, and still that last 2 which we have is still divisible by 2, so we're going to continue to divide some more by another 2. So of course when I divide by 2, 3 cannot be divided, 1 cannot be divided, however 2 can be divided by 2, and that should give me a 1 over here. So you can see that it becomes 2. If I'm going to divide that by 2, that's going to give me a 1, so that's why I have a 1 here. And of course it's no longer sensible to continue to divide by 2, and the next prime number that you're going to start dividing by is going to be a 3. So you divide by 3, and 3 if you divide by 3, you're going to get a 1, and the other two numbers cannot be divided, so you're just going to copy down 1 and 1. And if you look at the last step, it says here continue to divide until all the numbers end up giving you 1, 1 and a 1. So this is exactly where you should stop. 1, 1, 1, and the moment you have that, so stop here. And now we can actually start to find the lowest common multiple by taking all those numbers on the left that we have 2, 2, 2, 2 and 3, and we're going to multiply all of them together to get the lowest common multiple. So lowest common multiples of 3, 4 and 16, of course we're going to write in prime notation first, or index form first. So 2 times 2 and times another 2, and then times another 2, and then we have one more 3 there, right? So we're going to write 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times a 3, and then this is of course is equals to 48, or you can also write it down as 2 to the power of 4 times a 3. Okay, which would, if the question requires you to write, express the common multiple in index form or in using indices. Okay, now this is of course one of the way to do it, and remember the multiples, okay, should always be greater than or equal to the given numbers. Okay, in the worst case scenario, it can give you the multiples of 16, so but it should never be smaller than the given numbers. Now the alternate method we want to look at, okay, it is the smallest multiple, because the word lowest tells you it is the smallest multiple that can be obtained for all the other given numbers. So let's say we want to do the same question. So find the lowest common multiples of 3, 4 and 16, and of course this can be quite a tedious method, but just to be aware of it, but it is quite easy to comprehend. So multiples of 3 would be, we're going to write 3, 6, 9, 12 and so on and so forth. So we're going to just keep writing down, you know, first multiple, second multiple, third multiple and so forth all the way, okay, to a certain number. And then we're going to write down all the multiples of 4, 8 and so on and so forth, and we are going to write down all the numbers. And then we can write down, list out all the multiples of 16, and this is what we have. So all these are the multiples of 3, 4 and 16. But what we are looking for is the common multiples. So 48 seems to appear in all the 3 multiples in the list, and the next number you can see is a 96, which is also a common multiple. Okay, so the common multiples of 3, 4 and 16 are 48, 96, and of course if I were to continue the list, I'm going to get more and more and more of the common multiples. But what we are looking for is the lowest common multiple. So the lowest common of 48 and 96, they are common multiples, but we are looking for the lower number, which is the lowest common multiple, and that's a 48, and that's how we get the answer 48, right? So once again, I would like to stress that multiples, you must remember, must be greater than or equal to all the numbers given.